Good afternoon, members of the media, both here at the Office of the Alliance for Change in Georgetown and also online. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, and my apologies for the slight delay in our start. It's a very, very rainy day here in Guyana. I want to let our members of the media know that in today's press conference, we will have contributions from Dr. Shamir Ali, who is an executive member of the Alliance for Change based in the diaspora. The Honorable David Patterson, Member of Parliament, who's sitting next to me. And we also will have a presentation from Dr. Vince Adams, who is also in the diaspora. Lead of the Alliance for Change, Nigel Hughes, will join us in a few minutes. And I'm happy that Beverly Alert, Member of Parliament, is also here to answer any questions that you may have. Can I ask Dr. Shamir Ali to start with his presentation on corruption?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, Honorable Kathy. Good afternoon, namaste, salams. Blessed Eid al-Adha to all listeners. Personally, I do not, as a Muslim, enjoy doing this message, but I have to do it, and there's a reason for it. I've had the opportunity to offer prayers at the three holiest masjids, and I've also had the opportunity to walk the steps of Jesus on the Via Dolorosa. So it's a responsibility heavy that I cannot refuse. My statement today: the Mohammeds and the Guyana government on the 2020 Lamborghini importation and clearance, and the USA sanctions on 4 persons. Mohammed's enterprise, owned by Nazar and Azruddin Mohammed, was sanctioned for omitting gold from declarations, evading duty taxes, and bribing government officials. The Guyanese people expected the president and the second vice president of Guyana to take steps to address the situation when the USA sanctions were announced. Guyana's president and second vice president and the Guyana police force all failed to initiate a thorough investigation into the USA allegations and to take appropriate action if wrongdoing is found. During 2020, His Excellency the Honorable President Donald John Trump, his Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, then USA Ambassador to Guyana, Her Excellency Sarah Ann Lynch, were active with His Excellency Brigadier David Arthur Granger's change of government. The Alliance for Change Party requests the current President of the United States, the Honorable President Donald John Trump, and his administration to hold all corrupt Guyanese officials accountable, including sanctions and visas cancellations. Based on the recent social media 10-minute long video from T. Mohammed, reportedly accused with evidence of the top 2 Guyana government officials in approving a price of US $75,000 for the importation and customs clearance of Team Mohammed's Lamborghini. I can only smile. I happen to have one, and I know what that is. Businessman Azruddin Mohammed released what he said were WhatsApp messages between himself and President Ali in relation to the controversial importation and clearance of a Lamborghini vehicle in 2020. It must be remembered that the PPPC, one-seat majority in Parliament, was sworn in on August the 2nd, 2020, the same month. The US President should formally express concern about the allegations of corruption and reiterate the importance of good governance and the rule of law, and to consider imposing sanctions on individuals, including government officials, business leaders, or others who are implicated in corruption. The Alliance for Change Party urges the USA administration to implement visas restrictions to all corrupt persons with the evidence available at the US Drug Enforcement Agency, the US Department of Homeland Security, the US Department of Justice, and the US Federal Bureau of Investigation for kleptocracy. The Guyana Police Force has acknowledged a recent report by the U.S. Department of Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control regarding sanctions imposed on 4 Guyanese officials, including Senior Superintendent Himnat Saw. These sanctions are part of a broader effort by the U.S. government to target corruption and illicit activities. The Office of Foreign Assets Control works to identify and disrupt financial networks involved in corruption and other illicit activities, often collaborating with international partners like Homeland Security investigations. In this case, the sanctions against the 4 Guyanese individuals suggest a concerted effort to address corruption in Guyana. Finally, again, the PPPC, 1-seat majority with respect, is failing and becoming a bigger disaster with Guyana's efforts to combat money laundering, corruption, and illicit activities end. But with respect for comparison, this is the month of Eid al-Adha. I asked my brothers in Washington for an input of my 2 page so I don't get in sticky wicket with them. And what they says, Prof, DC inputs are perfect. Give them enough to read between the lines in preparation. Keep it very simple. So whoever is doing the wicked stuff, please behave yourself. They are serious. Thank you.
I think you have to unmute. Thank you very much, Cathy and Prof and fellow panelists. And good afternoon, members of the media. As we will, as the Alliance for Change, be at our press conferences, revealing and disputing our policies on various aspects. We hope that our press conferences are informative and not abused on session, as has become the norm from other parties. So I will give you, last week we shared our 18-point oil and gas policies, and I would now go into detail on our policy number 1, the first one, transparency in the oil and gas industry. The Alliance for Change, being aware that Guyanese are the owners of oil, gas, and natural resources, commit to be fully transparent in all aspects of the operation of this important sector. The AFC guarantees what has been the past and current practice on information sharing will not continue under an Alliance for Change leadership. We are committed to ensure that all citizens are provided with current information in regards to all activities, including agreements, contracts, concessions, and other related matters. In moving our policy forward, these are the responsibilities that we will assign to the minister responsible for petroleum. Within 180 days of signing of all agreements, contracts, and concessions, the minister responsible for petroleum activities will publish in a public medium as well as in the Parliament, sign copies of all agreements. Within 120 days of any approval to amend any of the original agreements, the minister responsible for petroleum activity will publish in a public medium, as well as in the Parliament, the signed, agreed amendment. Should either of the parties to any agreement request that the information deemed proprietary to that party be withheld, if approved by the minister responsible for petroleum activities, such information can only be withheld for a period no more than 18 months after the signing of the agreement. Thereafter, the information will be published in the above manner. All seismic and related data will be property of the Republic of Guyana. On application to the minister responsible for petroleum activities and the payment of any fees, if applicable, such information will be made available to the interested party. We have also placed responsibilities on the holders of petroleum agreements. And these are: all holders of petroleum agreements will be required to publish every 6 months in a public media general data on their petroleum activities, including petroleum production details, gas flaring, reinjection, cumulative oil extraction details, general details on seismic surveys and exploration activities. Publish in a public medium on the anniversary of its renewal copies of all insurance held in relation to their petroleum activities. On request of the minister responsible for petroleum activities, the holder of petroleum licenses shall provide all relevant information on any contracts entered into with regards to the licensee's petroleum activities. And finally, on the request of the Parliamentary Committee of Natural Resources, all licensees will be required to attend such meetings to provide general information on their petroleum-related activities. We are aware that to enact some of these policies, legislative measures will be required, and such acts such as the Petroleum Activity Act, the Freedom Information Act, the EPA Act, Parliamentary Standing Orders, Oil Spill Act will have to be amended, and it will be done as soon as we assume powers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David Patterson. And I'd like to invite Dr. Vince Adams, our advisor on oil and gas, to give us his presentation today.
Thanks, Kathy, and good afternoon to the media. As we know, the president has assented to the oil spill bill, which is to the chagrin of most, since this bill itself could be one of the most gravely consequential decisions made by the president against this nation. But fortunately, because of the media and others who've been writing and putting pressure on this government, fortunately, this oil spill bill is still kept alive, and thankfully so, for it exposes the government affirmation of its sellout of Guyana. The fact remains that could never be erased, is that an oil spill without full or unlimited liability coverage will result in a calamitous environmental disaster and financial bankruptcy for not only Guyana, but for the entire Caribbean. So it's really critical that this issue be kept alive. And of course, thanks to organizations such as the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, which has cited the government for breaching international democratic principles and for breaching the Escazú Agreement, the UN Convention of the Law of the Seas, and the Treaty of Chaguaramas. And thanks most importantly to the media for persevering with questions which gurus Nandalal and Jaglio can't answer because there are no answers. Yesterday, the media, and I think it was Kaichur News, asked a very simple, straightforward, and natural question, which is the at the pillar of this issue. And the question was, why won't the government withdraw from the appeal against Judge Kissoon's decision? And Judge Kissoon's decision, just to remind you, called for the unlimited liability coverage to be carried through a parent company guarantee by Exxon. The question was asked because what they're claiming, falsely claiming, this is the government now in the bill, is that this unlimited liability coverage is in the bill, which is a blatant lie. Well, okay, if they're saying that it's in the bill and it's also in the permit, why are you still going ahead with the bill when you're saying that it's there? Listen to what Mr. Nandalal says. Mr. Nandalal says the bill deliberately kept the parent company guarantee in place and kept the exact provision that Judge Kissoon ruled. How does that make sense? Let me repeat that. This is what Nandalal says. The bill, quote, the bill deliberately kept the parent company guarantee in place and kept the exact provision that the Judge Kissoon rules. Well, if that is already in place, why is there a need for a bill? Withdraw it. You can't have both at the same time. You can't be arguing in court against Judge Kissoon's decision and claiming that that decision is in the bill. It's absolute foolishness and nonsense. But that's the kind of hoax that they're getting away with. And it was kind of funny that yesterday when the question was asked of Mr. Jagdi, of course, he didn't have an answer for it, but because there's no answer. And he went into his Sue moment and said to talk to Nandalal. But that's exactly what Nandalal said. How could these people be taken seriously, and especially with the kind of consequences, with the people's lives and financial assurance at stake? They're trying to fool the Guyanese people. Now, I wanna, it was so disgusting to listen to Mr. Nandalal, and of course he in his diatribe a couple of nights ago, he spent almost his entire time abusing down everybody that dares to question him. He went after the Commonwealth Lawyers Association that he can't even carry water for. He calls them an alien organization and a grouping of people, whoever they are. This is the unprofessionalism that we've got to deal with, and this is the embarrassment that these people take on the international scene. But what they can't get away, what he cannot get away from, because he's trying to deny that his main intent of this bill, he's trying to deny that it was not his intention to get rid of Judge Kissoon's ruling. And here is the evidence in Parliament. First of all, he said that this bill had nothing to do with Judge Kissoon. Nothing to do with Judge Kissoon. But he goes to Parliament and uses this ruling as a justification for this bill. Listen to what he says. He says, must we, in Parliament, must we be allowed to remain frustrated by an ill-informed decision by the court, referring to Judge Kissoon's ruling? Yet he says it doesn't have anything to do with his ruling. Then he says it would have been highly irresponsible to leave that decision on the public record, which means he's saying we're going to get rid of this off the record with this bill. And he said the decision distorts the law of the country. So he keeps repeating again. He and both Mr. Jack, what the bill says, they're reading from the bill. The bill says, of course, the responsible parties will be responsible for all damages and liabilities. That's already into law. And even if that's the case, why it doesn't matter who is responsible if they do not have the means to cover the responsibility or the financial assurance that is called for in the law, in the act. And that was the reason why we implemented the full liability coverage that Judge Kissoon upheld. And now he's lying, they're lying, and the media needs to keep after him to ask him if he is saying by his own words, these are very important words and indicting words. If he's saying the bill deliberately kept the parent company guarantee in place and kept the exact provision that Judge Kissoon ruled, first he needs to show us where that is in the bill. And secondly, it doesn't make sense for him to say that and still maintain his appeal of Judge Kissoon's ruling. Now, let me get to something here which is, and you know that what he does, which is exactly what we're seeing here. They get before their audience and he lies to them. There's nobody to fact check him on the spot in real time, so he gets away with it. Then he decided to bluff in his recent diatribe that, oh, nobody, you see, they would only talk, they don't want to debate me. I'm ready to debate in public. And then when I called his bluff, he came there 2 nights ago. Now he's backing down. He said that all I want is a platform. Yeah, well, yes, I want a platform. And the platform is just to give the people the truth, not the lies that he's peddling and the propaganda. I do want a platform, not on behalf, not for me personally, but to give the people the right information. He said he was on CNN already, so all this information is out there. Well, obviously, sure, you're on CNN with yourself and you know whoever's interviewing you, one of your followers. So again, I'm calling on him to not be running away as like a coward and come forward and let him face the public and answer questions in real time so that he could be exposed. Or he can stand up and defend. It's as simple as that. But don't be hiding behind NCN and whoever else wants to interview. So thank you, and until further questions.
Dr. Adams, I wanted you to just comment very briefly on the revenue sharing agreement, which is part of the exploration agreement, I think, signed by former President Janet Jagan. Could you briefly just clarify that issue of concern that's been raised recently?
Yes, and this is another important spreading of their propaganda and lies. Folks, I'm going to repeat this again and again because it's very important. Every time Mr. Jagdeo and Mr. Nandalal and all others get out there in all of their excuses when they do not want to do something, or they just continue to be submissive to Exxon to excuse that away, they always say that their hands are tied because of the contract signed by the AFC up to yesterday. Mr. Jagdeo says it. So here are the facts, folks. There were 9 total contracts, starting with the 1999 contract signed by Janet Jagan. 9 contracts. Do you know how many of those contracts the PPP signed? 7 out of the 9. 7 starting with 1999. And all 7 of those contracts have the same exact terms. Listen to me again. All 7 of those contracts that was signed before, the 2 that the AFC signed were signed, or the coalition signed. All 7 of those were signed with the same language. So that language, those languages on all of those issues, on the renegotiation clause, on the decommissioning clause, on how you calculate the revenues coming back to, all of those were signed by the PPP, not the AFC. And here's the other lie that was peddled yesterday, and I believe it's also through ignorance of the vice president. He said that contract was only a prospecting contract. So when the AFC had its chance, or the coalition had its chance, after we found oil, we could have changed the contract. That is also false. That contract was that is why it's called a production sharing agreement. You cannot call something a production when you're saying that it was prospecting. All of the conditions are in those contracts. So here again, you had nine contracts total. The AFC or the coalition, I say AFC because they always go after Mr. Trackman, but there were nine contracts. Seven were signed before the coalition came into office, and it was the same thing that the coalition copied everything except for one change when the coalition doubled the royalty from 1% to 2%. So everything again. So the coalition never invented everything. So they should stop this type of lies. I don't know, Kathy, did you want the numbers too with it?
I think that's your clarification is spot on. And we can see if those are requested by the media, then certainly we can go there. But thank you very much for that very important clarification. And I want to invite leader of the Alliance for Change to make his presentation this afternoon. Nigel Hughes.
Good afternoon, members of the press. My apologies for my tardiness. I want to commence this afternoon by saying we have written to the chair of GCOM asking her to appoint an independent legal advisor and not rely on the advice of the current sitting Attorney General. We are going to make this letter immediately available to the press, but I'm just going to read, I'll read the letter in its context, lest there's a suggestion that I've cherry-picked the content. It's addressed to the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission. Dear Madam Chair, the Alliance for Change notes with growing concern that since the termination of the services of GCOM's previous legal advisor, there has been no appointment of a suitably independent legal counsel to serve the Commission. We are further disturbed by the indications that the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs is now expected to advise GCOM on legal matters concerning the conduct of the 2025 national and regional elections. The formal announcement of September the 1st as the date for general and regional elections has triggered the final and most intensive phase of Guyana's electoral cycle. It is therefore imperative that every aspect of the process reflects the highest standards and of transparency, impartiality, and public confidence. For some time now, well before the election date was announced, stakeholders, including the Alliance for Change, have consistently expressed grave concerns about the integrity of the voters' list, the failure to implement key recommendations from prior elections, the need for independent verification of voter identity, and the general dysfunction that continues to characterize aspects of GCOM's operations. Indeed, the disarray was observed during our recent meeting with GCOM, which was alarming. Against this backdrop, the insertion of the Attorney General, whose partisan affiliations and political commentary are well documented, into the advisory framework of GCOM raises serious issues of conflict of interest. The role of the legal advisor to GCOM requires not only legal competence, but unimpeachable neutrality. It cannot be reconciled with the current role as chief legal advisor to the executive. The Attorney General's visible political activism on behalf of the ruling party, including frequent appearances on issues in the news where he routinely disparages political opponents, further compounds the problem. No credible democracy can expect public trust in its elections if its supposedly independent elections body is seen to be guided, legally or otherwise, by a politically aligned figure. Furthermore, the dual role of the Attorney General, simultaneously serving the interests of the executive, and now it appears advising the Commission, creates an unacceptable conflict that undermines the constitutional mandate of GCOM as an independent institution. We therefore urge the Commission to immediately reconsider this development and appoint a legal advisor whose independence is beyond question. That individual must be professionally qualified, non-partisan, and committed to upholding the principles of fairness and transparency upon which democratic processes depend. The integrity of our electoral system must not be compromised. It is in GCOM's own interest and that of the nation that the matter be addressed urgently and decisively. I remain available to discuss this if the Commission requires any clarification. That was delivered to the chairperson of GCOM today electronically, and the hard copy, I believe, was also delivered. I want to move on to perhaps a more positive aspect of our national development, and that is the plans the Alliance for Change has for the development of this country, which we call the New Republic. As you know, Guyana commenced commercial production of oil in 2019 December, and our economic fortunes have improved significantly. And therefore, the challenges that we faced for many years in attempting to build a society that was fair, just, and afforded the opportunity to all its citizens to thrive and reach their full potential is now available to us. We in the Alliance for Change believe that education is the key cornerstone for the development of a modern society. We believe it is the single most important factor in beginning to level up the chances of those who have been permanently overlooked and excluded. We are losing close to 50% of our students who do not finish secondary school. The way to provide a second realistic, sustainable chance for our young people is to assist them in securing a real chance to participate in Guyana's future in providing them with the skills of a modern economy. The Alliance for Change will establish the National Skills Academy. This will train the future workforce for a modern Guyana, a modern voluntary program for all Guyanese. It will consist of 9 months of intensive training in every region for vocational activities. A skills-based certification program aimed particularly at the persons who are not academically inclined. Job-specific training in growth sectors, including oil and gas, STEM, logistics and transportation, construction and infrastructure, and health and safety will be provided. Participants will be paid while attending the program so they can support their families while upgrading their skills. At the end of the program, successful graduates will not only be certified, but will receive industry-relevant tools and equipment to give them a start in their new lives, whether in their own businesses or in a job. Financial management support will be provided to those who opt to start their own businesses. The AFC believes in teaching a person to fish and giving them a fishing rod rather than handing out fishes. And I would like to conclude with the 14 points, which will be the foundation for our educational plan. They are: 1, enhance foundational skills, including strengthening literacy, numeracy, and critical thinking skills to ensure students can progress academically and acquire higher order competencies necessary for today's job market and solving complex issues. 2, promoting equity in education. 3, integrate digital literacy and emerging technologies. 4, emphasize climate change and sustainable education. 5, develop soft skills and critical thinking. 6, encourage our best minds to become educators. 7, continuous professional development for educators. 8, flexible and an adaptive curriculum. 9, infrastructure and resource development. 10, policy and governance. 11, integrate nutritionists in all schools. 12, integrate school-based mental health services. 13, very, very important, cultural confidence and ethnic respect. And 14, foster environmental stewardship. In the Alliance for Change, we believe that curriculum reform is absolutely critical. We believe that that should prioritize depth over breadth while embedding UDL principles, that is universal design for learning skills, that support diverse learners in mastering foundation academic skills. I will touch on a matter that has made it to the news and has been headlines from last night, which is the question of the sanctions that have been imposed on 4 Guyanese nationals, including a senior officer of the Guyana Police Force. Now we are embarrassing ourselves not only domestically, but internationally. It is clear that our friends, particularly the United States, have lost confidence in senior members of the Guyana Police Force. This comes merely a few weeks after there was a clear indication from the ambassador that the services of the Federal Bureau of Investigation would have been made available had there been a request from the president. Of course, none came. We are now at the stage where confidence in the Guyana Police Force is unacceptably low, and the Guyana Police Force cannot continue to discharge or pretend to discharge its constitutional mandate in the manner in which it is attempting to do at the moment. It is clear that the Guyana Police Force is beyond reforming itself. It is clear that the leadership of the Guyana Police Force has absolutely no interest and pays no concern to the rapidly deteriorating lack of confidence, not only in his ability, but in the Guyana Police Force as an institution. We believe the time has come for us to repeat our request made earlier that the current leader of the Guyana Police Force proceeds on retirement and departs from his office, that there be a radical restructuring of the Guyana Police Force. Difficult to do in 3 months to elections, but what I can say on behalf of the Alliance for Change is in the event of the election of the Alliance for Change as the government of the day, we will establish by law a civilian body charged with the oversight of the operations of the Guyana Police Force with the full powers of investigation, the full powers of prosecution, and the full powers to subpoena and summon documents from the Guyana Police Force. The Guyana Police Force has demonstrated that it is incapable of responding to even the loudest of criticisms in the most obvious of cases where there has been corruption in the Guyana Police Force. We believe that given that we are heading to a national election on September the 1st, that one, the departure of the current leadership of the Guyana Police Force is absolutely necessary. 2, an overhaul in the management at the top levels of the Guyana Police Force is also mandatory. And thirdly, the fact that a friendly government like the United States of America would not have provided the head of state with a heads up about what was coming down the tube is an indication of the lack of confidence in the head of our country for the purposes of law enforcement, particularly in the area of narcotics. Finally, the report of the sanctions discloses that Guyana is now in the epicenter of the narcotic trade. It is clear from recent discoveries that our local police are incapable, whether on their own or even with the assistance of some foreign agencies, of getting to the root of the problem. The constant parade of the low-level and occasionally middle-level operatives in the narcotics trade, by passing them through the court, quite often without successful prosecutions, is an indication of the lack of intent on the part of the Guyana Police Force. And given that we are now in a national crisis, we believe that the Commissioner of Police should do the right thing. Good afternoon, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nigel Hughes, leader of the Alliance for Change. And at this point, we want to take your questions from members of the media. please go through the usual procedure of identifying yourself and, of course, the organization that you represent. And the raise hand function, of course, makes that so much easier to manage.
In-house. You have a mic? You want to take this mic so we record your question?
Oh. So we have a question from one of our reporters right here at the Center for Change. Please go ahead.
That's right here.
Yeah, speak.
All right, so Celestine NCN. I have two questions actually. First is today we've seen opposition leader Aubrey Norton saying that the door is still open for a coalition between his party and the AFC. We've noted that you would have mentioned that those talks would have ended and you're open to collating with like-minded individuals. What are your thoughts on this? Is the party going to reconsider reconvening those talks for perhaps a coalition? Secondly, we've seen some endorsement from persons endorsing President Ali for another term in office, including members of your own party. How do you view these endorsements? Is there any indication of a lack of confidence in the AFC's leadership?
Thank you. And let me ask David Patterson.
Yes. Hi, good evening. I do expect that we will get this question every press conference until maybe until nomination day. Our previous statement remained the same, as well as the previous caveats, that the final nail would always be nomination day. So, I mean, it's not much more I can add to that at the moment, but other than we are preparing quite assiduously for elections 2025.
In relation to the question about the two persons from the Alliance for Change who recently endorsed the current sitting president of Guyana, sorry. I first of all want to thank them for their service to the party during the time that they were there. You've asked if their endorsement of the president is a vote of lack of confidence in the leadership of the Alliance for Change. And I will specifically give the reasons that were provided by them for leaving, and perhaps you can decide whether that's an expression of a lack of confidence. I believe Mr. Daniels said that during the term of the APNU AFC in office between 2015 and 2020, there was some road that was not repaired in front of a relative's home, and he lost confidence because of that. I have to say that on behalf of the party, I've checked with Mr. Patterson, who was Minister of Public Infrastructure. I've checked with our local government minister, and none of them have any recollection of any request from Mr. Daniels to repair a road in front of a relative. Since I assumed that my current position in July last year, on the occasions that I have interacted with Mr. Daniels, I have never received from him any indication either in relation to his dissatisfaction of the performance of the coalition while it was in office, or in relation to his specific comment about the failure to repair a road in front of his mother. What I will say is that the Alliance for Change will not prioritize roads in front of their party members. What we will have is a national policy that has very transparent criteria for the roads that get repaired and for infrastructure development, because I think people should question, and Mr. Daniels would have been afforded that opportunity. Secondly, in relation to the loss of Mr. Mohammed from Region 5, I think I have met with him maybe once, twice, and on neither of those occasions when I met with him did he express any dissatisfaction. As a matter of fact, when we met in Region 5, he was very happy with the new leadership as it was comprised. It was shortly after we elected. So I'm not sure that the reasons provided by these gentlemen amount to a lack of confidence. But again, I will repeat, we will thank them for their service. And we are living in a country where people are free to change their minds at any time and endorse those they think are represent their best interest. It's up to the electorate to scrutinize the reason, the time, the circumstances, and perhaps motivation for their decisions when they are made.
Okay, I think the next hand up is Andrew. Please give me some guidance. And NASA, please go ahead with your question.
I thought it was me.
Good afternoon, everyone. Anas Williams, Skytrue News. This question is directed to either Mr. Patterson or Mr. Vincent, Dr. Vincent Adams. Sir, there continues to be a lot of debate surrounding the oil spill bill. And yesterday, the Vice President was asked if there are, for clarity, of course, if there are provisions in the bill that covers full liability in the event of an oil spill for Guyana as well as its regional neighbors, and would these other countries, if affected, be provided with coverage for economical and environmental losses? And he said, not in full quotes, that Guyana only legislates for Guyana, and if, let's say, Trinidad is affected, then they would have to sue Exxon, take Exxon to court in order to be compensated for whatever damage they may face if an oil spill occurs in Guyana and it affects them. Now, citing the international obligations that international lawyer Melinda Janke was spoken about recently, what is the AFC's position on this?
Well, I let Vince go first. Vince?
Yes. I saw that too, except that I
You
didn't
have to
have
unmute yourself, Vince.
Yes, I did. You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Oh, yes. No, I flagged that question also yesterday, besides the other one. And again, here we go back. All of that would have been covered. That's like we gave this thing when the coalition was in office and I was at EPA. When we wrote that full liability coverage or unlimited liability coverage, all of that was considered. And what it says, it doesn't matter where the spill goes, whether it's Jamaica, Exxon will be responsible. When I say Exxon, whoever's the operator will be responsible for the cleanup of all the spills. And again, getting back to the Commonwealth, I mean, which other credible source of information or knowledge would you want better than more equipped than the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, which nonetheless despicably described as some foreign entity poking their nose in Guyana's business? Here's what they said concerning that same particular issue. It says that, first of all, they breach the international democratic principles, and they breached the ESCAZU agreement, which means it's full, disclosure of information, and the UN Convention of Law of the Sea, which is addressing exactly what you're talking about. They breached the UN Convention of Law of the Sea and the Treaty of Chaguaramas. Well, I'm not aware of what specifically is in the Treaty of Chaguaramas, but they were referencing the same exact thing you were saying. Melinda Janke also brought it up as an issue, but this here was all supposed to be covered by what the coalition has in place or had in place that they are now trying to get rid of. Judge Kissoon upheld what was in place, and all of that thing said that whatever it costs, they've got to cover it. It doesn't matter where it goes, because pollution and spills do not see geographical boundaries or political boundaries. So yes, it's in there, but all of this here, and that's why this bill is so important and egregious, because it dismantles all of those guardrails and protection, not only for Guyana, but for the rest of the Caribbean.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, David, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Vince. Am I on? Yes. Ms. Williams, I also want to highlight a couple of things which I think in his off the top of his head responses, not well thought out by Jagdeo, but he obviously insults our CARICOM neighbors in the process. We are signatories to not only the Treaty of Chaguaramas, we're also members of CIDERMA, and their obligations, which is the Caribbean Disaster Preparedness Agency, and there are also their obligations for us under those treaties, which is obviously to protect our mutual environment. So for him to say that you make laws only for Guyana and they have to sue Exxon is quite frankly idiotic. And well, we don't expect much from him anyway. And Ms. Williams, if you can recall, during the EIA for one of the Exxon's projects, that the fisher folks in Trinidad wrote with a complaint. The Tourism Association in Barbados wrote with queries sent in because they're already concerned about what happens in the event of an oil spill. This is all on record. For him to say it out that you would disregard the comments of our neighbors, who we have treaties with, to say it out that they have to fend on their own and they have to sue Exxon, it really shows you how myopic this government is when we're dealing with oil spills. Our neighbors have already signaled out there's potential for harm that can happen should there be an oil spill to their waters, to their fisheries, and those things like that. Obviously, the vice president is not well informed. He's never well informed. He bluffs his way on these matters and bullies his way on these matters. So it's disappointing. So I endorse everything that Vince has said and add those additional comments.
Let me
Thank you. And I think we have a question from Adam Harris, followed by Shamar Musa from Guyana Chronicle. So Adam, over to you.
Kathy, could I add very quickly? Say something very quickly on the question?
Sure, Vince.
Yeah, quickly. Just and David, I'm not going to add any more descriptives to David. Aptly described Jagdeo and the rest of them. But this here is very important also. Like I said, the coalition carefully thought this out. One of the things that we were intending to do as a next step, the environmental impact assessment, which was what David mentions. By definition, you have to get all of the parties who are affected to have input into that EIA. And one of the things that we were planning to do was to get all of the Caribbean countries involved in putting together that EIA and the planning for whatever, because if we get a spill, they have got to be part of that response to the action. So we've got to work in coordination with them. So that was a major action that we were planning to take, to get them involved in putting together that environmental impact assessment. But it probably wouldn't have mattered because this government is not even following the EIA. The EIA says one thing, for example, that you cannot exceed the safe operating limit for oil production, and they're exceeding it by over 40%, which creates or enhances the opportunity or the risk for an oil spill, but at the same time, it's not covered on the back end when you get an oil spill. That's what we're dealing with in this care, well, it's not even careless, but it's just heartless and callous government.
Thank you, Dr. Vince. Adam, your question?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I couldn't help but notice the obsession with endorsements. Endorsement, to my mind, suggests someone that has a large following placing his support and the support of his following behind a certain person. Now, for today, we talk about 2 AFC members who've endorsed Ali. What is the impact of those 2 endorsements on the AFC? How does it affect your membership?
Hi, Adam. Thank you very much for the question. What I can, I believe, say with some level of confidence is we are unaware of any immediate impact to the persons who are likely to vote for the Alliance for Change. We, of course, are in the middle of campaign season. We continue to do that. It doesn't have an impact on our policies. As a matter of fact, a lot of the work in the case of Mr. Daniels that had been done with the Small Miners Association and the development of mining in Region 7 was done while he headed the Alliance for Change. And most of those policies he did with the support of the persons who were in the Alliance for Change and remain in the Alliance for Change in Region 7. Like I said, we appreciate the work and time and effort of both of them, but the proof of the pudding is coming on the 1st of September.
Remind us also that in the US election, Taylor Swift, as we will recall, with her hundreds of millions of supporters, had endorsed Kamala Harris, and of course, the rest is history. Just wanted to remind us of that. Okay, Shamar Musa, Ghana Chronicle, your question, please.
Yes, good afternoon. In keeping with the same topic of endorsements and so on, recently we would have seen photographs of the Region 10 Vice Chair, who is an AFC member, with Mr. Mohammed and his team. Some have said that this is more evidence of the AFC working along with Team Mohammed. Mr. Hughes, what are your thoughts on that?
Now, sorry, I'll answer to that. I mean, the position once again, and I do expect once again this will be a topical question, a recurring question, and our answer is quite the same. I mean, we wish the Mohammeds, if they do officially do submit their nomination, well, we welcome as many persons as possible. That's a democracy. Any person that wants to support any party in this elections are free to do so. From the Alliance for Change, there is no engagement with the Mohammeds. I think both Mr. Mohammed and our chairman have said that publicly. And maybe next week when you ask the question, I will simply say ditto. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. Can I ask if there are any other questions from our reporters at this point in time? Adam, I see your hand up. Please go ahead. Adam, did you have a question?
Sorry, I didn't unmute myself. Very sorry. It has to do with the possibility of armed confrontation between Venezuela and Trinidad, where she spoke about Guyana. That's Kamala, the SSR, talking about the impact of the Venezuelans on the Guyanese with the border issue and all of that. And Trinidad apparently has a similar problem. Would you care to comment on that situation where Venezuela is taking its big word, bellicosity, to Trinidad, sir?
I think the newly minted Prime Minister in Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Besessa, demonstrated to us, gave us a lesson actually, in how you deal with Venezuela. In her presentation, in her press conference, she said she was concerned about the number of able-bodied young Venezuelan men in Trinidad, that she would not tolerate in any circumstances any attempted intervention in Trinidad by Venezuela. She represented those interests, and she made it very clear that if Trinidadians for some reason go into Venezuela with less than acceptable intent, they are on their own. So we got from Ms. Besessa immediately, 2 or 3 weeks after she's in office, One, the concern about the number of able-bodied military-age men in Trinidad, and that she will not be allowing any more of them to come in. According to our foreign secretary, we have 100,000 Venezuelans here. And since he made that disclosure on Facebook, we have not heard of a single undertaking by this administration to address that potential Trojan horse. So in relation to what the Prime Minister said, we support fully both the policy and the stance that she has adopted. And she does not have a border problem with Venezuela. We, on the other hand, do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Sorry, David, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. Since there are no other questions, and I would have thought it would have come up, I like to address a comment which I unfortunately saw on Facebook, and it seems to be trending, whereby it was said that the Alliance for Change requested 55% of for 55%, 45% in our negotiations with APNU. It's unfortunate that that comments can be made without on the details of the engagement by the negotiation teams without putting any context into the discussion. And I will not be going into any details specifically, but I would just want to put on the record how the issue of percentages came about. And of course, on seeing the comments made trending on Facebook, it gave the impression of us being greedy, which it was not that. But I was not part of the negotiating team, but I immediately sent for the notes. From it, I thought it would have come up, but I do think that it's important that we address it. And the note says, these are the notes from the meeting, that both sides and the negotiating team discussed and agreed under the current constitution, the president is all powerful. Both sides presented several scenarios. So therefore, and when the negotiating team from the record were speaking, Team A was saying if Party A gets a presidency, how does it work? And they discussed several scenarios on how disagreements and some of it were grounded in past experience, past coalition experience, how disagreements can be resolved before getting to the cabinet. They discussed, and this is the internal note, they discussed scenarios whereby if there's a policy decision that is going to be made that did not find favors among the parties, they discussed the possibility of a smaller committee comprising of a three-man committee or something like that, who can sit down and try to seek resolution before reaching cabinet. Because the idea is always that a cabinet there's collective responsibilities, and you shouldn't really have to have a disagreement worked out in the cabinet if there's a policy disagreement. And all the while, I think the two sides agree that under our constitution, nothing can stop the president from acting on his own deliberation. But they were trying to see, well, listen to me, how can we move forward, and how can we have a working relationship? They discussed, and from the notes, that one possibility is that cabinet should that the party that has the presidency should not have the majority in cabinet, and this has nothing to do with ministers or ministries. It's a totally separate discussion on how a coalition could work for several persons. As you know, you don't have to be a minister to be in cabinet. And one of the possibilities is if Party A is the president, let Party B have the majority of, not ministries, but the majority of members in a cabinet. So therefore, obviously, even though the president has the overriding rule, if there's a vote or if there's a discussion, there's some balance in it. So that's how the number 55 came up. It was absolutely nothing about the sharing of ministries, absolutely nothing to do with the percentage all the way through, going through. And they discussed the various scenarios that on one side, if the Party A being the president, Alliance for Change has the president. Obviously, they don't have the majority in cabinet. They discussed various other avenues of how we can, and some of it I do think was probably based on past experiences, and how you simply don't willingly go back into a coalition and have a dispute and try to argue it out in cabinet, and these were and there were several other scenarios put forward. So it's unfortunate for anyone to just simply pluck a number out and then make it seem as though it was an across the board issue. I don't intend to, and we do not intend to, unless we have to in this case, to go into the details of the various scenarios, and I must say, I must commend both of the negotiating teams. They went through several different scenarios. What if this happened? What if this transpired? How can we ensure that with X and Y and we have a smooth running coalition agreement? So to pull out a single number in a scenario building when there were at least 4 different scenarios on how the cabinet can function, and just to use that as a reference is unfortunate. So I trust that brings some light to it. It was never ever 55% of it was a question of the cabinet. You can appoint anyone to the cabinet. You don't have to be a minister. It's all in the president's deliberation. We were just trying to see. This is the negotiation to see how we can get some balance in it, so everyone. Parties that enter into a coalition could have a feel as though their voice is heard and is respected. Because the worst thing you would like to do is have a divided cabinet over a policy. And that was simply one of the scenarios which was thrown out without context. And I do hope that you have understood the context in which that particular scenario was thrown out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. And I think David's response has elicited the final question. I see Guyana Publications has raised its hand. So Guyana Publications, please go ahead with your question. This is the final question in today's press conference.
Thank you so much. This is Khadija from Starboard News. This is a question for anybody at the head table. The 2023 helicopter crash, the report for that helicopter crash has been delayed multiple times. And if I understand correctly, it should be presented by the Minister of Public Works. Could the AFC say whether there should be more of a sense of an urgency as it relates to the release of that report? That's my question.
But thank you very, very, very much for that question. A very, very good question. As you know, I might be aware that the civil aviation bill, the new civil aviation bill, was tabled by myself in during 2015, 2020. I can't remember the exact name. It went to a special select committee, so no one can say that they did not have the opportunity to contribute to that. And arising out of the that bill, and this is in keeping with ICAO's recommendations, in keeping with FAA, all the aviation authorities, an independent air investigation unit was established. So therefore, it was independent, meaning it fell under the umbrella of GCAA administratively wise, meaning salaries and those things like that. However, the Air Investigation Unit reported directly to the minister. And that and the regulations which we enacted by law states that should there ever be a air accident in this air accident, that unit was at the time when I was there was headed by a very competent woman, Miss McAdam. I don't know who's heading it at the moment, but by regulations under our laws, this air accident unit would independently investigate any air accident, which means obviously the helicopter crash. Of course, they can seek assistance from whoever. Then the report is then presented to the stakeholders, for comment. And this was done there were two air accidents that I can recall, or no, more than that, but two international ones. I think Fly Jamaica and Caribbean Airlines had a on-land collision, and then I think there were some small aircrafts. Even if small aircraft runs off a airstrip, the air accident committee will investigate. But the regulations and the law states that after sending to the stakeholders, whoever they may be, the parties, interested parties, the finalized report is sent to the minister, and by law, you are supposed to make it public. The idea behind this ICAO and the International Aviation is that people and the industry can learn from accidents. And that is an international convention in which we have signed on to. So the mere fact that the government and the minister has not published it by law, he is in breach of the law and in breach of the regulations of Guyana. The several excuses that they have provided does not hold water. If the report has been done and if both sides have been able to comment on it, and which we know for sure that has happened, by law, they are supposed to make it public, and it's supposed to be issued on the website of the GCAA so that the entire world can see it and learn from any mistakes that may happen. That is how the industry has been established, and that is a convention which we have signed on to. So they are in breach of the law. Obviously, there are things in there that they don't want revealed. And when you start to see things like that, it could be a lack of maintenance. And of course, if the helicopter was not properly maintained, it falls squarely on the government of Guyana. It could be other contributing factors, which may lead directly to the stewardship of the government again. And that's why it has not been made public. And this is nothing new, Ms. Barr. The census, still awaiting the census. The Minister of Finance, the President, the Vice President promised it should be available by the end of last year, even though that was a year after it was supposed to be. We're heading into elections and we can't even have our census. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the members of the media for joining us today and for our presenters. As we close, I would, on behalf of the Alliance for Change, want to extend Eid greetings to all Guyanese, especially our Muslim brothers and sisters. The celebration of Eid ul-Adha has become ingrained in Guyanese society as part of our rich culture and religious diversity. So on behalf of all of us at the AFC, we extend Qurbanis greetings to all Muslims and Guyanese everywhere. Be safe this weekend, and we see you next Friday at our press conference. Thank you very much for joining us.